game. But I did want to talk a little bit about Kyren Lacy, man. I don't know if you guys are overly familiar with the story or if you've kept up with the recent news that came out regarding his situation or his circumstance. And so I did want to talk about it a little bit here. And so Kyren Lacy was a very talented receiver from LSU. He played with Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. He was the third receiver while those guys were all there. And then he was a guy slated to be the next LSU receiver to go to the league and maybe find some style of success. Now, he wasn't the player that Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. were, but those are top 10 caliber draft prospects and honestly top 10 to 15 caliber receivers in the league even at this age. And so, but he was still a guy that very likely and very reasonably, it's not a far-fetched at all, he was going to be an NFL he was an NFL caliber player. He's probably a guy that was going to be a mid-round guy, but he was a guy that was going to the league or was worthy. His talent was worthy to be in the league. So getting to the crux of what happened at the end, I wrote down the date actually. So at the end of December, last December, so it's been not even a full year yet, so just shy of 10 months ago, December 17th, 2024, there was an accident, a car crash in Louisiana where he's from, or in the area where he's from, Louisiana, in which a 78-year-old, I want to say it was a 78-year-old woman was unalived, killed in a motor vehicle accident, right? On December 17th, 2024. Now, Kyren Lacy was indicted for a hit and run and vehicular homicide roughly 3 weeks later on January 10th in 2025 as the culprit of what police called a hit and run, a vehicular homicide or vehicular manslaughter against the 78-year-old, I believe it was a woman, that died on December 17th. Now, Kyren Lacy was adamant about his innocence the whole time, of course, but he was, for all intents, I mean, he was held guilty in the court of public opinion. There's no other way around it. And then me myself, I remember hearing about the story actively when it first came out. Kyren Lacy, and I'm not even going to do that. I'm not going to talk about rumors and things like that talk or spoke against his name that gave people the excuse for judging him before the facts were known. So I'm not even going to feed into that. But I do remember hearing this story come out, and there was a lot of controversy around his still being on the team at LSU, the way they handled it or dealt with it, the support or lack of support that they showed him, especially for charges that were yet to be proven or even tried, right? And then here's the thing about it. A warrant had been issued, but he hadn't officially been, I guess, what's the right word I'm looking for? A grand jury hadn't officially made the decision to grant procession with that case. If I'm saying that poorly, forgive me. And if somebody in here knows the proper way that should be explained, please let me know. And I generally know myself. I'm struggling right now. So in dealing with this, trying to maintain his innocence, his attorney, and shout out to his attorney. I should have notated his attorney's name as well, who's been very vocal, who's been very defensive of Kyren Lacy's legacy postmortemly, right? Because of course we're going to get to it. He did unalive himself. He committed suicide in dealing with the stress from this situation. And so December 17th, there's an accident. Now, Kyren Lacy was in the vicinity of this incident, but was not the guilty party. And in fact, the accident that led to the death of this other person, he was roughly anywhere from 70 to 90 yards away from the incident when it happened. And then he came along, after the fact. And so his attorney I don't know if it was his attorney, but surveillance footage of the accident itself has been leaked or released, and it clearly exonerates Kyren Lacy from the charges that were pending him in regards to this incident. And also, in addition to that, body cam footages of the arresting officers has been released as well, which shows them coercing and coaching an eyewitness to the accident who initially cleared Kyren's like, no, man, it was a woman. There was a woman, a white woman driving this vehicle who struck this other vehicle, which ended up resulted in the hit and run death of a 78-year-old human being. Because honestly, I can't remember if it's a man or a woman. But this witness definitively told officers that it was a white woman who struck this person and resulted in their death, and was coerced and coached into saying that it was Kyren Lacy instead. And so this is a huge deal, man. And on this show, and maybe I haven't talked about it as much on this show, but on my first show with my dog Chop, Let the Field Speak, a lot of y'all hear from there. And so y'all know one of the things we talk about on this show is that this isn't meant to be a political show. The thing about it, this isn't political, because it's a disservice to Kyren Lacy, his family, and his legacy to say that his death and and the circumstances surrounding his death and what happened to him, that is merely politics arguing about conservative versus liberal, right wing versus left wing. Like, no. And I don't want it to be weaponized in this way. This story should offend everyone. This story should piss off everyone. This story should hurt everyone. Because Kyren Lacy could have been any of our sons. Kyren Lacy could have been any of our brothers. Kyren Lacy could have been any of our fathers, any of our he could have been any of that. Any of us could have been Kyren Lacy, right? For minding our business, driving down a road, an accident happens, a football field length ahead of you, a witness says, hey, this is the killer, this is the person that does it, and an officer, right? A person of authority, a person who we are obligated to trust, to protect, and serve, who quite often, and I'm not talking, I don't know enough about this guy, but and you know what? I'll leave that alone. But this style of person who goes out his way to actively and for duplicitous reasons try to steal the life and ruin the life, and he did. That man stole Kyren Lacy's life. I'm gonna say that officer, that man, and anyone who involved, they stole this young man's life. This is a 24-year-old man who unalived himself, unable to handle the pressure he was under and dealing with this situation. Knowing that you're innocent and dealing with the backlash of this public perception, the places you go, the things said about you in the media and in person, on his own campus, in his own hometown, in his own home state, right? Anywhere he goes, if somebody sees or hears his name, and having that stigma attached to it, guilty in the court of public perception, and all because of, and I hate that we've weaponized and made these words almost cliche now to say, but racism, man. A racist cop stole this young man's life. And now we can't even say or talk about these things because they're politicized now. So now if you want to talk about police corruption or systemic racism or things of that nature, then those things are, hold on. Y'all gotta forgive me, man. I had to grab my door. But those things have been weaponized politically, and so that now we can't even address them without just being saying that we're playing into some style of political machine, and it becomes less about the facts of what happened to this young man, right? It becomes less about police corruption. It becomes less about systemic racism and how this is a problem that affects all of us, all cultures, all ethnicities, right? Everyone who considers themselves a citizen of this country should be outraged that our system is failing us. Our system is failing us. Because Kyren Lacy is us, right? And so this pisses me off, man. And so getting back to what ended up happening to Kyren Lacy, so I think there was a grand jury that was convened to decide whether or not that the state was going to be allowed, I guess, or granted the right to proceed with the case or the trial against Kyren Lacy for the vehicular homicide of that individual. 2 days before that, he had some style of argument or falling out with his family. A gun was fired, not in the direction of anyone, but a gun was fired, I think, at the ground. Kyren Lacy, he gets in his car, he takes off. I think police, were in pursuit of him, and he succumbed to the pressure. He succumbed to the pressure of his circumstance, and he unalived himself. He unalived himself in his car, and then he was a 24-year-old man who, like I said, man, he succumbed to that pressure and he did unalive himself. And but like I said, man, as sad as that story is, all of us should be heartbroken for his story. You know what I mean? Like all of us should be heartbroken for his circumstance. And though, yeah, it was his hand on the trigger that unalived himself, but I lay his death firmly at the feet of the police corruption, man. That put this that put him for no reason at all, that put him into that circumstance, in that situation, and then him succumbing to that circumstance, and that being the result, man. So this is a tragic story for all of us for a lot of reasons, and I hate that stories like this get politicized, and because then it dehumanizes us from what actually happened to this young man. And so, man, that's is really heartbreaking for me, man. So I definitely wanted to say something about it, man. Wanted to speak about it because I think we owe that to the memory of Kyren Lacy and the others like him, man. He's not alone, right? We may not know all the names, we may not have seen all the faces, but his story is not a new story. His story is not something unheard of, or it's not a one-off, or it's not something that just happened in this situation. That officer, and I'm so upset that I didn't notate his name, but that officer, he's not just he's not one bad apple. He's not one bad apple, and we're making this a bigger story. Like, no, we've seen this story time and time again, man. And so I don't want to talk about it or pretend or act like that's not the case when it is. And so, man, rest in power, rest in peace, rest in love to Kyren Lacy, man. Condolences to your family, to your friends, to your loved ones, to anyone who was touched or affected by your life, dog. Man, rest in power, rest in peace, rest in love, man. I supremely, man, I don't want to talk about what anyone believes. That's not my place here, and I'm not the type of person to tell anyone who's right or who's wrong about any of that. Whatever's on the other side for you, Kyren, whatever's on the other side for Kyren Lacy, I hope it's peaceful. I hope it's I hope it's peaceful. That's all I can say about it, man. And so, like I said, this story definitely touched me, dog. It affected me. That could have been my nephew, dog. That's what I kept thinking. You know what I mean? In 10 years, that could be my nephew. My nephew could be a college football player trying to go to the NFL. He's on, you know what I mean? And then while he's minding his business, driving down the road, some racist asshole cop, man, could point the finger at him and steal his life. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it made me feel like. And so, man, that one definitely stung me, man. And so I definitely want to talk about it. But I want to see. And then here's the other thing as well. What's going to happen on the other side of this now? My dog, Day One Game Jarrell said they need to release all the footage from that day, the dash cam, and the body-worn camera. Exactly, bro. All that footage. And here's the thing about it as well. Because that footage that we've seen, well, it's been available the whole time. So don't tell me that for 10 months, nobody was able to see or review this footage and clear that young man's name before he got swallowed up by that circumstance. Because that's bullshit as well. Like, why is it that the grand jury was still convened it was 10 months later, 2 days until the grand jury was going to convene? Well, how come you're going to tell me that the district attorney's office, nobody viewed this footage? Nobody viewed that body cam or the interview footage from that officer when these charges are being crafted and when this case is being built? Nobody saw the footage of the officer being told that no, it wasn't Kyren Lacy, it was some white woman that hit this person that resulted in death before he then turned off his camera, and then we get the coerced and coached witness statement against Kyren Lacy. So that footage wasn't available 10 months ago. The footage that captured the accident, that footage wasn't available 10 months ago. We're gonna say that the district attorney's office couldn't have tracked down or procured that footage 10 months ago, right? This is what we're saying. So nah, man, on so many levels, there's questions that need to be answered, and then there's asses that need to be kicked. There's justice that needs to be served, right? We can't only be eager to serve or to find justice when it fits the narrative that we want to create. When it's the narrative of Kyren Lacy being a young troubled black kid with a history or a propensity towards violence or whatever other nonsense or whatever other rhetoric that wants to be said about him or cast upon him or put on him because of his touchdown celebration dances, right? So when we want to jump to conclusions and paint them in that picture, then what's that say about the guys who the actual criminals who stole his life, right? What's it say about that officer? What's it say about that officer's sergeant? What's it say about that officer's squad mates? What's it say about that officer's what's to say about anyone who had a breath of this incident? Anybody who had any ties to it, because it goes through every level and all the way up to the DA's office. And so, man, no, this is a disaster and a crime on so many levels, and we need to have something done about it, man. We need to see some style of recompense. And this is the thing about it. Why is that such a big ask? And why is it such a great ask? And we'd all be shocked if we saw indictments placed or charges brought against that officer. We'd be shocked to see if there were charges or an investigation launched into that DA's office. We'd be shocked or flabbergasted to see anything come of this, right? That should be clear and logical justice, clear and logical course of action once we've discovered blatant lies, corruption, and criminal action, right? But that's not the case, and it pisses me off, man. So we definitely had to talk about it. My dog Day One Gage Jarrell said. Exactly, bro. It's not political, bro, but it gets used that way. So, like, if we talk about what happened with Trey Reed, right, lynched in 2025, and then officials autopsy his body and classify it as an official suicide by hanging, and ignore the fact that the man had multiple broken bones all over his body and the back of his head was caved in. These are the authorities, right? These are the government officials. This is what's coming out. And so then Colin Kaepernick has to come out and sponsor an independent autopsy to prove what was there all along, right? And then there's political backlash for Colin Kaepernick getting involved, as opposed, more people were upset about Colin Kaepernick getting involved, right, than they were about the cover-up of the murder of Trey Reed. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is ridiculous, dog. It's ridiculous, man. Yeah, RIP to that man. Rest in power, rest in peace, rest in love, dog. And I ain't gonna lie, man. Like I said, spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs aside, none of us know what's on the other side. And to say anything otherwise is a lie, regardless. And so it is what it is. I hope that man found peace on the other side, man. Regardless of his circumstance or how it happened, I hope that man, if that's your thing, you know what I'm saying? I hope that man found peace on the other side. And that's all I'll say about that, dog. And I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about on Wednesday night. And then one more time, man, before we got out of here, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it again. Rest in power, rest in peace, rest in love to Kyren Lacy. And man, I pray nothing but bad things for all those who had a hand in stealing your life from you, big dog. Y'all can say what you want to, man. All right, y'all can say what you want to, man. I hope they get everything that's coming for them, man. And I want to see justice served in your name, big dog. But other than that, y'all have fun. Y'all take care. Enjoy y'all football Sunday. Love the ones that love you. Peace.